everyone, today I'm going to be showing you some tips to immediately improve your digital art in Procreate. So over the course of the last year, I have been putting a lot of time into improving my art and illustration skills, and while there's no substitute for putting in time and practice, I did want to share some tips that will instantaneously change the quality of your work. And that's really important because when you are getting results that you're happy with, you're more likely to do it more and put in that time to practice. What I'm going to be painting today is a bird, and I'm going to use several different Procreate brush packs, which brings me right to my very first tip, which is to experiment and play around with different types and styles of brushes. When I first started in Procreate, what I found that I was most comfortable with was a watercolor style and watercolor brushes. And so having something that I enjoyed and felt comfortable with meant that over time I became more brave in branching out to use other types of brushes. And so by experimenting with different types and styles of artwork and brushes, you can find what you're good at and what you enjoy and lean into that and use that as the avenue to get those reps in. One of my best tips is a secret weapon, the Liquify Tool. It's a super powerful modification tool that allows you to tweak and perfect the proportions of your artwork while still liquidly maintaining the integrity of it. You can access this tool under this wand icon up here. Once you're in the panel, there are a lot of different options that you can play with. The ones that I use the most are push, expand, and reconstruct. I use the push tool to move around and change the scale of areas of the sketch, and I find that I use expand primarily when I'm drawing eyes to make them bigger and therefore cuter. Reconstruct will allow you to, of course, reconstruct any liquify adjustments that you've made, and you can also use two-finger tap to undo while you're in the tool. So I've already gone ahead and filled in the eyes, the beak, and the legs here, and I'm going to start working on a different layer to fill in the color of the body. Working with multiple layers gives me a lot of different flexibility as far as making changes and corrections, but also to maintain the integrity of details that I don't want to mix in or distort or change. I want to keep the eyes specifically intact, and I want them to sit over everything. So I'm going to be working on a layer below. So for this, I'm going to use a brush from Uproot Brush's Gouache collection. I'm going to choose the cleanest of the set because I know I'm going to go in and add more texture later. So I'm going to start with something that has a little less texture for this. If you want to switch from the paintbrush to the eraser tool, you can hold down the eraser tool and it'll erase with the brush that you were using on the paintbrush tool, which is something that I like to do for both fills like this as well as textures. Staying with the same brush, I am going to change colors and move on to a different layer. And again, working with the multiple layers is great, especially in these areas where I don't have to be as careful about painting around the eyes because the eyes sit on top of the layer that I'm painting right now. Now that I have my solid fill here, I'm going to move on to using some texture. Now you can do this working in a new layer. I want to keep my texture all contained within this. So what I'm going to do is tap this layer, have this menu come up, and then hit select. And then I'm going to go on to a new layer. In my color selection tool, I'm just going to move downward to stay in the same family of colors, but to a slightly darker shade of this. From this dry texture pack, I'm going to use the light charcoal brush. One thing I really like about these brushes is how they're very pressure sensitive, and so you can really build up the shade as you like. So if I'm pressing very lightly, just get a small amount here, and then add more pressure and it's almost totally solid. And I do this a few times, changing the colors. And then if you ever find you have too much, again, you can just hold down on the eraser tool and it'll start erasing with your current brush. And this is a really nice way with the texture to just lift some of this color up. This is where I find that it's really helpful to use a different layer because I'm still keeping my original base layer of color intact. I find that using these textures with my original sketch as a layer here, I can use the sketch as a guideline to kind of figure out where to shade. because I'm not planning on having an outline on this bird, but I do want to maintain this definition here of the wings in the back and make it clear that this is the second wing. And so I use that as a guide for where I add this texture. Now I'm almost done with this, but I want to add in a colorful background. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch to merge all of these layers. I'm going to use some texture stamps from the Delicious Texture Pack, and there's a large variety of these. So I'm going to go in with this grilled stamp, and I'm working on a layer. I have a couple empty layers here beneath my painting. I'm just going to go in and stamp in a few times below, and then I'm going to change to a lighter version of this. And now sometimes I find that I want to soften this a little bit, and so to make the texture a little less harsh, you can duplicate the layer, and then I like to go into the adjustments menu here and into Gaussian blur, and then you can slide to the right to blur this out. And then you can change the layer opacity and then merge the two together. And that just gives it a slightly softer look. And lastly, I'm gonna go in with a darker version of what I used for the background. And in the dry texture pack here, I'm gonna add a little shadow using this texture builder. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful. Hopefully you learned something. All of the brushes and textures that I used in this video are available in a bundle that you can get for 50% off from Design Cuts. So check out the link below to grab that. It is an amazing collection of brushes that have really elevated my work, and I'm excited to see what you guys make with them. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.